So here we go. Welcome to another edition of Meet the Oppo. Today I'm joined once again by good old Toby Lock, the man who covers all things MK Dons ahead of their trip to Portman Road this weekend. Toby, thanks for joining me once again. How you been doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, Ross. How are you?
I'm very well, my friend. I'm going to say it's hot. I'll just chuck out there right now, my friend. But it is what it is. It's going to be a lovely day at Portman Road on Saturday. Sun will be shining. Two good footballing teams taking on each other. Of course, we'll get into what we expect from the game later on in this video. But let's talk about the opening two games for MK. Of course, they've had a cup game. You guys won a cup game. We've got knocked out early doors already. Opening two games, though, Toby. 23rd in League One. Start of the season. Doesn't really matter at the moment. But two 1-0 defeats. First against Cambridge at the Abbey, and then at home against Sheffield Wednesday, promotion rival, of course. How would you recap the opening two games?
It was a bit of an anticlimax, to be honest, because I think obviously finishing third last time out, everyone was expecting Dons to start building on it and hit the ground running really. But there was so much transition, 14 players in and pretty much the same number going out as well. So it feels like a wholly new team on that first day. There were just 4 players in the whole squad that would have kicked the ball last season for MK Dons as well, and one of them was on loan anyway, the goalkeeper Jamie Cummings. So it's a massive change that Dons have gone through. But saying that, it doesn't feel as bad as it looks. For all the first half was bad at Cambridge, the second half was much better, albeit without scoring. Similar with Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, the penalty that was awarded, the foul took place a yard outside the penalty area. So quite how it was given a penalty in the first place, I think had an awful lot of people scratching their heads. And, you take that out, Wednesday barely threatened and Dons battered him in the second half again. So it's certainly not as bad as it looks, but there are certainly teething issues and they don't look as fluid and as potent and as dangerous as they did in the second half of last season.
And it sort of mirrors basically Town last year. We signed 19 summer signings. On the opening day, there's a lot of signings and the word was coming out, time to jail, and maybe that's the case with Milton Keynes Dons right now with Liam Manning. And what's the mood like with Liam Manning? What's he coming out with, and how's he feeling with the open two games and the fans so far?
I think it's pretty balanced. He's almost his stock phrase that he gives to us in interviews. He's never too high, never too low, and I think that's pretty much where he is at the minute. I think some of his words in the build up to the season were, to be patient with this team, to give them time to, as you said, gel and get used to working with each other, and that feels like that's where they are at the minute. They're just not quite on the same page. At times at Cambridge, it didn't look like they were even reading the same book, let alone on the same page. But, the screws are all in place. They just need tightening up. And I think they're close. They're close to getting a result, but they just need that little bit of time to get, into each other's pockets, to know what each other's going to do, to know each other's movements and that sort of thing. So, it's not panic stations by any means at this stage, given that we're only 2 games into a 46-game season. But, they'd like to get it up and running sooner rather than later, that's for sure.
Mm. And there will be, as you said, there'll be a new MK Dons team coming to Portman Road this weekend. Let's talk about certain players. We did a League One lowdown video, of course, with good old Toby and talking all about the signings. But let's talk about the players that stood out so far, even though there's no goals been scored, 2 defeats. But which players have been stood out so far? The new signings.
For me, I think it's probably not so much a new signing that stood out, but a player that was signed in January but only made 4 appearances last season, and that's Matt Smith. He came in from Manchester City. He didn't really have a great loan spell at Hull in the first half of last season and didn't really get a kick, to be honest, for Dons last season. But he's come into the side and has for me, become a sort of a very creative outlet for Dons. He's played at the base of the midfield and he's played in a slightly promoted spot as well in the opening 2 games. And he just looks like he's eager to get on the ball and to cause problems and to sort of spark things into life. And for Dons, who lost out on a player like Scott Twine, who went to Burnley in the summer, that's what they lacked. That's, when you look immediately at the team, that's the sort of thing that they were missing. And I think Matt Smith's been able to step in there and make that position, or certainly take on that mantle. And he's a really lively player, and I've liked the look of what I've seen from him. It's impossible to tell from a couple of substitute appearances and a couple of starts in games that didn't really mean an awful lot last season. But he's come in and really impressed me. And then from the new signings, up front, Matt Dennis has looked, although he's not really had a sight of goal, he looks like he's come on and, he wants to cause problems. He wants to get on defenders' nerves and he wants to bump into them and run beyond them and just cause a nuisance of himself. And that's sometimes what you want from a striker, is to just get under the defender's skin a little bit and try and rile them up. And from what we've seen so far, he looks like he's got that in his locker.
That's good to hear. And of course, the talking point when we always play MK Dons, I know a lot of Town fans always think, Scott Twine, he's going to score a set piece, he's going to do something magic for you guys. But now, as you said, he's now at Burnley. But there's a talking point going into this one. Louis Barry, of course, is with you guys now. Was on loan last season at Portman Road. Sad just didn't work out for him. We had a lot of players in his position. Of course, he then went to Swindon and got them into the playoffs. He's now with you guys for the season. How's he done so far? And could he be something that could pop up somewhere against Town on the weekend?
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect as well. I'm not quite sure of his position as yet, because he's played left of the attack, right of the attack, and played through the middle in the first few games. So he's one of those players who looks like he's eager to get on the ball, eager to make an impression. And from what little we've seen of him so far, I've liked what I've seen. Particularly against Sheffield Wednesday, he was just industrious up and down the right hand side and almost bore a groove up and down that touchline as he was trying to take on the defenders. But yeah, looks an interesting prospect, and I think he's one of those players who needs the right system to get the best out of him. And whether or not he was afforded that opportunity at Portman Road, I couldn't tell you. You'd obviously be a better judge of it than I would. But I think if he can find his right position and a position where he can thrive and get the best out of him, I think MK Dons could have quite a player on their hands.
Indeed. And let's talk about then round 2, Liam Manning versus Kieran McKenna, 2 young coaches in this division. It was like a chess game, wasn't it, at Stadium MK, in that goalless draw, 7,000 away fans. Wasn't able to celebrate a goal because, it was just both teams battling each other. Are we going to expect that sort of game again? Of course, as you said, MK Dons are a whole different team now, but they'll be coming to Portman Road, another 20+ thousand at Portman Road. We're selling out tickets here, there, and everywhere. So it's going to be a very good atmosphere. What sort of game should we expect this weekend?
Well, given the I think it's the last 4, isn't it, have ended up in draws. I think we'll go for another draw. No, it'll be a fun one, because I think, as you said, they're 2 young coaches who want to get the ball down and play football, and the Portman Road surface and the size of the pitch and everything that goes along with it allows and affords for that. So it feels very much like a Stadium MK style pitch, and I think it'll allow both teams to play their games and to try and exploit the other. But I think there's really not an awful lot to tell between the 2 sides historically, and I think that may end up where we end up tomorrow. It may well be that it's on as even, and it's once again 2 good teams butting heads. But I think, given that Dons are still a team in transition, they may go into it slightly more on the back foot, slightly more eager to try and get points on the board, and they'll be not, as I mentioned earlier, they're not hitting the panic switch, but they'll be eager to get off the mark, because 3 games with no points, you then start looking up and thinking, I wonder what else needs to fundamentally change, because what they've done so far hasn't worked.
Indeed. And well, it's time for your prediction then, Toby. What are you wanting to see? What are you expecting, my friend?
Given that Dons haven't scored a goal in the league yet, I think I'd like to see him score. I'd like to see him at least get on the score sheet. Obviously, they got one on Tuesday night against Sutton in the Carabao Cup. But I think if they can come away having scored a goal, I think fantastic. Defensively, they look pretty solid. The partnership of Jack Tucker and Warren Ahora looks like it could be one for the future. Certainly, they're both very young defenders, so they've got a lot of football in them as well. So defensively, I'm not really that worried by them, but it's the bit going forward. So if we can come away, score, draw, 1-1, I think it will certainly suit MK Dons. I think come away with a victory, of course. I think that might be a little bit of a stretch, but I'll take a 1-1 draw now.
Okay then, my friends. Well, any other business, anything else you want to mention, my friend, as we wrap up this video? It's been another great chat, my friend.
Well, I'm going to be down at the fan zone at about 2:10, just after team news is announced. So if you want to come and give me some stick, by all means, come down. But looking forward to coming to Portman Road. It's always a good place to come, and some good football people there. So looking forward to it. And another sunny day. I don't think we ever go when it's miserable and cold. We either go we go at the beginning of the season or right at the very end. So
definitely.
Just looking forward to coming down again and saying hello to everybody.
Top man, well, it's a pleasure to have you on as always. And then, of course, follow the coverage with us. And, of course, follow the coverage with Toby. If an MK Dons fan or the Town fans want to see what Toby's saying all about the game, check out the coverage. And, yeah, look forward to Saturday. Bring it on. Bye-bye for now.